Emotions appear before thought, a sensation in the chest, a tightening in the jaw, a sudden rush of heat, a sinking feeling in the stomach. Most people obey these sensations immediately. They speak when anger rises, they quit when fear appears. They chase when desire pulls. They believe emotions are orders that must be followed. This belief keeps them weak and reactive. An emotion is only information. It is the body and mind responding to a stimulus, nothing more. Like a warning light on a dashboard, it shows that something is happening, not what action must be taken. When you mistake the signal for a command, you surrender control. You let a temporary state decide a permanent action. This is why regret exists. Regret is born when emotion leads and wisdom follows too late. Training begins by slowing down the space between feeling and action. The moment an emotion rises, pause. Do not judge it as good or bad. Do not try to push it away or feed it with stories. Simply recognize it. This recognition alone creates distance. In that distance, choice is born. Without distance, there is only reaction. Reaction feels natural, but it is the behavior of the untrained mind. Anger often disguises itself as strength. It feels powerful, direct, alive. But anger narrows vision. It blinds you to consequence. It makes you predictable. Anyone who can provoke your anger can control you. Fear disguises itself as protection. It whispers caution, but when followed blindly, it builds prisons. Desire disguises itself as motivation, but when unexamined, it turns into addiction and restlessness. Emotions lie when they are given authority. A disciplined mind listens without kneeling. It receives the message, then decides the response. When insult arrives, the emotion signals threat to the ego. The command would be to attack or defend. The signal, however, only tells you that pride has been touched. If you understand this, you can choose silence, humor, or indifference. The emotion loses power the moment it is seen clearly. This practice is uncomfortable at first. The mind wants release. It wants expression. Holding steady feels unnatural because the habit of reaction has been trained for years. But discomfort is not danger. It is the sign of growth. When you stay still while emotion moves through you, you realize something important. Emotions rise, peak, and fall on their own. They do not need your help. They only persist when you feed them attention and action. Over time, awareness becomes faster. You notice emotions earlier, before they fully form. A small tension, a subtle shift in breath, a change in posture. This is mastery at a deeper level. You are no longer fighting emotion, you are reading it. Just as a skilled fighter reads an opponent's movement, you read your inner state. The earlier you see, the less force is required. When emotions stop commanding, energy is conserved. No more wasted arguments, no more impulsive decisions, no more self-sabotage. Actions become cleaner. Speech becomes deliberate. You begin to move from clarity instead of mood. This does not make you cold. It makes you reliable. People around you feel stability, even if they cannot explain it. Life will continue to test you. Pressure, loss, insult, temptation will not disappear. The goal is not to remove emotion, but to remove its authority. When emotions are reduced to signals, the mind becomes free. Freedom is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of choice. Reaction is fast, automatic, and unconscious. It happens before you even realize it has happened. A word is spoken, a look is given, a situation changes, and the body responds instantly. Heart rate shifts, breath shortens, thoughts race. Most people live inside this speed. They call it instinct, personality, or honesty. But in reality, it is conditioning. Awareness is what slows the moment down and reveals what is actually happening. When awareness is absent, the mind behaves like a mirror that shatters at every impact. Every event leaves a mark. Every opinion changes direction. Every problem feels personal. Awareness does not remove events, but it changes how they land. It is the difference between being hit by a wave and learning how to float on it. The wave still arrives, but it no longer drags you under. To be aware means to see without immediately reacting. It means noticing the rise of thought, the surge of emotion, the impulse to act, all as they appear. This seeing is not passive, it is precise and alert. The moment you see clearly, reaction begins to dissolve. You cannot fully observe something and be controlled by it at the same time. Control fades when light is brought in. Most reactions are fueled by unconscious stories. The mind interprets an event and instantly creates meaning. A delay becomes disrespect. A mistake becomes failure. Silence becomes rejection. These stories ignite emotion, and emotion pushes action. Awareness cuts through this chain. Instead of believing the story, you observe it. You see thought as thought, not as truth. When the story weakens, the emotional charge weakens with it. Breath is one of the fastest gateways to awareness. When reaction arises, the breath changes. It becomes shallow, rushed, uneven. By noticing and slowing the breath, the nervous system begins to settle. The body receives a signal of safety. As the body calms, the mind loses urgency. What felt like an emergency reveals itself as a moment that can be handled. Awareness also exposes patterns. You begin to see how the same triggers produce the same reactions again and again. The same tone of voice, the same type of criticism, the same form of uncertainty. Without awareness, these patterns repeat endlessly. With awareness, they become visible, and what is visible can be trained. You stop being surprised by your own behavior. This practice requires honesty. Awareness shows you your impatience, your insecurity, your pride. It removes the excuses you have been hiding behind. This can feel uncomfortable, even painful, but discomfort is the cost of clarity. Avoiding awareness keeps the illusion alive, but it also keeps you trapped. Seeing clearly is the first act of responsibility. As awareness deepens, space appears between stimulus and response. In this space, you are no longer forced to act. You can choose to wait, to speak, to move, or to remain still. This space is small at first, almost invisible, but with practice, it grows. A second becomes enough. In that second, a lifetime of mistakes can be prevented. Awareness does not make you slow. It makes you accurate. Reaction is quick but careless. Awareness is calm and exact. When action comes from awareness, it carries less emotion and more intention. The mind stops leaking energy through constant reaction and begins to store it. Clarity replaces chaos. The more aware you become, the less you need to control yourself forcefully. Control becomes natural. Reaction dissolves not because it is fought, but because it is understood. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the absence of inner noise. A loud room can feel silent when the mind is steady, and a quiet space can feel unbearable when the mind is restless. Inner power is born when silence replaces constant mental movement. Most people fear silence because it removes distraction and exposes what they have been avoiding. The mind is addicted to noise. Thoughts, worries, memories, plans, and opinions create a continuous stream. This noise gives the illusion of control, but in truth, it weakens focus. Energy is scattered in every direction. When silence enters, that scattered energy gathers. What was leaking becomes concentrated. Concentration is power. Silence trains restraint. When you do not immediately speak, explain, or defend, you learn to hold energy inside. Words are not just sounds, they are expressions of force. Speaking without awareness wastes that force. Silence allows you to observe first, to understand the situation fully before acting. This is why silence often feels heavy to others. They sense the presence of someone who is not leaking themselves through constant expression. Inner power grows when you stop reacting verbally to every impulse. Not every thought deserves a voice. Not every emotion needs expression. By choosing silence, you deny the ego its constant demand to be seen and heard. This weakens ego-driven behavior and strengthens discipline. The less you speak from impulse, the more authority your words carry when you do speak. Silence also sharpens perception. When the mind is quiet, subtle details become clear. Body language, tone shifts, timing, intention. You begin to read situations instead of being absorbed by them. This awareness gives you an advantage without aggression. You are no longer rushing to fill gaps with words or actions. You let others reveal themselves. There is a difference between suppression and silence. Suppression is forceful and tense. Silence is relaxed and alert. Suppression creates pressure that eventually explodes. Silence creates space that absorbs pressure. This space allows emotions to move through without control over behavior. Anger can exist without turning into attack. Fear can exist without turning into retreat. Practicing silence starts internally. Sit without stimulation. No phone, no noise, no distraction. Watch how uncomfortable the mind becomes. Thoughts will push for attention. The urge to move, to check, to escape will appear. Do not follow it. Stay. This staying builds endurance. Mental endurance is the foundation of inner strength. As silence deepens, you notice that many problems were never real. They were created by overthinking and constant commentary. Without inner dialogue, situations become simpler, decisions become clearer, action becomes direct. You stop exhausting yourself with imagined futures and repeated pasts. Silence does not make you passive. It makes you deliberate. When action arises from silence, it is precise. There is no excess, no wasted movement, no emotional spillover. This precision is felt by others. They may not understand it, but they respond to it. In conflict, silence unsettles aggression. When someone expects reaction and meets stillness instead, their momentum collapses. You are no longer feeding the exchange. Control shifts without confrontation. Silence becomes a shield that requires no force. Wooner power is quiet because it does not seek validation. It does not need approval or attention. It stands complete on its own. When silence becomes your base, you carry stability into every situation. Noise loses its ability to disturb. Pressure loses its urgency. You remain centered while everything around you moves. Impulse promises relief but delivers weakness. It urges immediate action, quick pleasure, instant expression. Discipline delays, restrains, and redirects. Most people confuse impulse with honesty and discipline with suppression. In reality, impulse is the mind seeking escape, while discipline is the mind choosing direction. An impulsive action feels good for a moment because it releases tension. Anger expressed, desire satisfied, comfort chosen. But that release comes at a cost. Each time impulse is obeyed, the habit grows stronger. The mind learns that discomfort must be escaped, not endured. Over time, tolerance for pressure weakens, and control disappears exactly when it is needed most. Discipline begins with small refusals. Not dramatic acts, not extreme rules, but quiet choices made consistently. Waking up when the body wants to stay asleep. Continuing work when motivation fades. Staying calm when the urge is to react. These moments seem insignificant, but they shape the mind. Every refusal of impulse strengthens command over self. The body and mind are deeply connected. When the body is undisciplined, the mind follows. Poor sleep, careless eating, constant stimulation weaken restraint. Discipline in physical habits creates stability in mental states. When the body learns routine, the mind learns patience. Structure is not restriction, it is support. Impulse is emotional. Discipline is intentional. Emotion is unstable by nature. It rises and falls without warning. If action depends on emotion, consistency is impossible. Discipline removes dependence on mood. Action happens because it is decided, not because it feels good. This is how progress is made on difficult days. The mind resists discipline because discipline threatens comfort. Comfort keeps the mind soft and reactive. Discipline introduces friction. It creates resistance that builds strength. Just as muscle grows under load, control grows under restraint. Avoiding discomfort prevents growth. Facing it transforms it into capacity. Discipline also creates trust with oneself. Each time you do what you said you would do, even when it is uncomfortable, self-respect grows. This respect is quiet but powerful. It does not rely on praise or recognition. It comes from knowing that your word to yourself is reliable. Without this trust, confidence is fragile. Impulse often disguises itself as freedom. It says do what you want when you want. But this leads to dependence on desire and avoidance of difficulty. True freedom comes from discipline. When you can act without needing emotional permission, you are no longer controlled by circumstances or internal states. Resisting impulse does not mean eliminating desire. Desire will arise naturally. Discipline decides whether it will be followed. You acknowledge the urge without surrendering to it. This creates space. In that space, choice exists. Over time, urges lose intensity because they are no longer rewarded with immediate action. Discipline is not rigid or harsh. It is steady and adaptive. It listens to reason, not impulse. It adjusts when necessary, but never abandons principle. This balance prevents burnout and maintains direction. When discipline replaces impulse, behavior becomes consistent. Consistency creates momentum. Momentum builds mastery. What once required effort becomes natural. Control stops feeling forced and starts feeling stable. A disciplined person does not appear rushed or desperate. Their movements are measured. Their decisions are grounded. They are not easily swayed by pressure or temptation because their center is internal. Impulse reacts to the moment. Discipline serves the path. When the path is clear, momentary urges lose authority. The mind learns to wait, to endure, to choose strength over ease. The desire to control the world is born from insecurity. People try to control outcomes, opinions, behavior, and situations because uncertainty feels threatening. When things do not go as expected, frustration rises. Energy is wasted fighting reality instead of navigating it. Control aimed outward always meets resistance because the world does not bend to individual will. The only place where control is absolute is within response. Events happen without permission. Words are spoken without warning. Loss, delay, success, and failure arrive uninvited. These are facts of existence. What follows is choice, reaction or response, panic or precision, complaining or adapting. Mastery begins when this distinction is understood deeply. Resent is trained, not imagined. In pressure, the mind returns to its habits. If the habit is emotional reaction, reaction will appear. If the habit is observation and adjustment, response will emerge. Training response requires exposure to discomfort without escape. When tension rises, stay present. When irritation appears, slow down. When confusion enters, pause before acting. Blaming the world for inner chaos is easy. It protects the ego, but it removes responsibility. Responsibility returns power. When you accept that your state is shaped by how you respond, control shifts inward. The situation may remain difficult, but you are no longer defeated by it. Control of response also means choosing timing. Immediate action is not always wise. Silence can be a response. Waiting can be a response. Withdrawal can be a response. Action loses effectiveness when it is rushed by emotion. Timing turns ordinary decisions into effective ones. This control changes how pressure is experienced. Pressure no longer feels like an attack. It becomes information. Stress reveals where training is incomplete. Triggers reveal attachment. Difficulty reveals weakness in preparation. Instead of resisting these signals, you study them. This study sharpens future response. When response is mastered, interactions change. Other people may remain emotional, reactive, unpredictable. You do not need them to change. Their behavior becomes part of the environment, not a personal threat. You stop taking things personally because you understand that most reactions are reflections of inner states, not deliberate attacks. Letting go of world control does not mean passivity. It means efficiency. Energy once spent on frustration is redirected into action that actually matters. You choose effort over complaint, adjustment over resistance, progress over argument. The mind that controls response becomes stable under change. Plans fail and adjustment follows. Criticism appears and clarity remains. Praise arrives and humility stays intact. This stability creates reliability. People begin to trust your presence, even if they do not understand why. Response control also sharpens decision-making. When emotion no longer floods the mind, information is processed clearly. Risk is evaluated accurately. Options are seen without distortion. Decisions become less dramatic and more practical. This mastery removes fear of uncertainty. Since response is under control, outcome becomes less threatening. Even failure loses its power because response determines learning. Success loses its danger because response prevents arrogance. Control of response is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek recognition. It simply functions. In every situation, you meet reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. The world continues to move unpredictably. People continue to act from their own conditioning. None of this needs to be controlled. When response is mastered, nothing external is required to be stable. Mastery of the self is not a sudden achievement. It is the result of countless small victories that no one sees. Each moment, you choose restraint over reactions, clarity over confusion, effort over excuse. You shape the direction of your mind. These moments seem ordinary, but they accumulate into unshakable stability. An unshakable state does not mean the absence of difficulty. Challenges continue to appear. Pressure still exists. The difference is internal. When the self is mastered, difficulty does not penetrate the core. It touches the surface but does not disturb the center. You feel the weight, but you are not crushed by it. Self-mastery begins with honesty. You cannot control what you refuse to see. Weakness must be observed without judgment. Impatience, fear, pride, laziness, and attachment reveal themselves in daily life. Instead of hiding them, you study them. Observation weakens their grip. Awareness transforms what force cannot. Consistency is the foundation of this mastery. Training only when motivated builds nothing reliable. Training when tired, distracted, or unenthusiastic builds depth. The mind learns that commitment does not depend on feeling. This is how reliability is formed. Reliability within creates confidence without noise. Mastery requires solitude. Not isolation from the world, but time away from stimulation. In stillness, habits surface. The mind reveals its restlessness and craving. Staying present without escape strengthens control. You learn to sit with discomfort without reacting. This endurance transfers into every situation. The body must be included in this process. Physical discipline supports mental strength. Posture, breath, movement, and routine all influence the mind. A neglected body weakens control. A trained body reinforces it. When the body learns stability, the mind follows. Self-mastery also demands restraint in success. Praise can destabilize as easily as criticism. When identity attaches to achievement, fear of loss appears. Remaining grounded during success preserves balance. Achievement becomes a result, not a definition. When the self is mastered, reactions slow naturally. You do not need to force calm. Calm is already present. Decisions arise from clarity instead of urgency. Actions align with intention instead of emotion. An unshakable person does not seek dominance. They do not need to prove strength. Their presence is steady, not aggressive. Others may test it, consciously or unconsciously. These tests reveal stability rather than threaten it. This mastery changes how you experience time. Urgency fades. Patience deepens. You stop rushing toward outcomes and focus on correct action. This focus brings precision. Precision reduces waste. Waste reduction builds momentum. Self-mastery simplifies life. Many conflicts disappear because they were fueled by ego and reaction. Energy once spent defending an image becomes available for growth. Attention becomes sharper. Purpose becomes clearer. Unshakable does not mean rigid. Flexibility remains. Adaptation becomes easier because the center is secure. You bend without breaking. You adjust without losing direction. The path of self-mastery has no endpoint. It deepens with practice. Each day offers opportunities to strengthen control. Each challenge reveals another layer to refine. Stability grows quietly, rooted in discipline and awareness. Control is not about force, suppression, or dominance. It is about clarity. When emotion no longer commands, awareness replaces reaction. Silence gathers strength. Discipline shapes direction. Response becomes deliberate. Self-mastery turns chaos into training and pressure into refinement. Feeling nothing does not mean losing humanity. It means standing rooted while emotions pass through without control. From this stillness, actions become precise and words carry weight. Life continues to challenge, provoke, and test, but nothing external holds authority over the inner state. When the mind is trained, stability becomes natural. You move through uncertainty without fear, through success without arrogance, through difficulty without collapse. Control is no longer something you seek. It is something you embody, on